Acting as a love letter to the 1982 film, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the 1997 PC release of Blade Runner. I actually purchased an original copy around 2 months after its release, and I still have that very same jewel case among my various pieces of retro gaming clutter. Oh, and alas, yes, the big box was long lost, and probably destroyed. I was younger then. Be it the film or in this specific case the game though, Blade Runner has always had a soft place in my heart. Even if the game was an absolute nightmare to get running thanks to DirectX 5 absolutely hating my integrated Trident 2MB graphics adapter that just happened to come with my Pentium 100 motherboard. When PC gaming was complicated. And just to highlight how difficult this was, and bearing in mind this was the semi-pre-home internet era, I had to wait around 2 weeks before I could finally get around to play it. But the fact that I remember all that clearly indicates just what an effect this game had on me. With all this in mind, it did therefore seem somewhat inevitable that sooner or later I would probably look to start speedrunning this game, and that's exactly what I did. Now for some of you, you might be surprised that there was a Blade Runner video game at all. Perhaps you are aware that there is a new upcoming game set for release at some point in the next couple of years, Blade Runner 2033 Labyrinth, albeit news on that particular front has gone a little quiet since it was confirmed, but still interesting stuff. Who knows though, perhaps some of you, maybe even the older heads, remember that there was a ZX Spectrum game. Yes, Blade Runner was on the humble little specky, although somewhat hilariously they couldn't get the rights to the film, so they instead decided to license Vangelis's amazing soundtrack and make Blade Runner the game based on the soundtrack. And yes, just to hammer that home, it wasn't based on the film, it was an interpretation of the soundtrack. Go figure. Just to be clear though, in this video we're going to be concentrating very specifically on the 1997 PC release that came from Westwood Studios. Westwood Studios, remember them? Yes, this came out before EA waded in and killed off yet another amazing developer. Bastards. Showcasing the current world record though, I hope to explain how the speedrun works, the tech tips and strategies we use to make it actually viable without going insane, and more so, how we finally managed to kill the biggest issue speedrunning this game had. RNG hell. So sit back and enjoy as we showcase Blade Runner 1997 as we go behind the splits. Blade Runner was released in November 1997 to exceptionally positive reviews and near universal praise from all major media publications, with it coming with a lot of material directly drawn from the original movie, which itself was inspired by the Philip K. Dick book, although under a very different name. Many of the original film actors reprised their character of the video game in voice talent form. Put simply, if you're familiar with the 1982 Ridley Scott film, then you're going to immediately feel right at home in the 1997 video game. Acting as a direct sequel, as in the events happen in the exact same timeline as the film, Blade Runner 97 gives us a new protagonist in Ray McCoy. While I'm not going to go into too much in-depth detail in regard to the plot, he is a Blade Runner, a specialist police officer charged with the execution, tactfully named as retirement, of androids who are, in the far-off year of 2019 I might add, banned from Earth due to a bloody uprising of replicant slaves on an off-world colony. Another factor in the need for Blade Runners is that the development of replicants has grown so much that it is nearly impossible to distinguish them from real humans, and this is where Blade Runners come into it. They possess talents, instinct, and a select few tools to help them track down any replicants who may have snuck back onto Earth, and with a legal mandate, they can summarily retire them and be paid handsomely for it too. And in this regard, you may be wondering why replicants would come back to planet Earth at all if their life is in such great risk. Well, this is another crux of the plot. Replicants only have a 4-year lifespan, and a number of them, again referencing to the original film, want to see if they can extend that beyond the 4 years. So with the plot very briefly covered, what about the game itself? Well, development started on Blade Runner around 1994-1995, and with Westwood Studios subsequently releasing it in 1997, it was groundbreaking for a number of reasons. Firstly, although not strictly new, Blade Runner had over 10 different endings, Some argue 13, although one is still yet to actually be found, and there are question marks as to whether the 13th actually exists. But back on point, it also had different randomly generated plot elements. This offered players a lot of replayability in that while the key points of the story are very similar until the final few acts, it was actually possible to see and access things you may not have seen before. In other words, playing Blade Runner 3, 4, 5 times was actually well worth it. Secondly, and in something incredible based on how it looks, Blade Runner, despite looking cutting edge for the time, 1997 remember, could be run on rather benign hardware. A clever use of voxel graphics for the main character sprites allowed for a soft 3D effect which, with their rather soft and somewhat vague edges, made them blend in remarkably well with the pre-rendered 2D environments. Put simply, this game did not require a dedicated graphics card, or more accurately in 1997 terms, a 3D accelerator. This truly was amazing. These kind of graphics should not have been possible without a graphics card. But finally, and as noted before, it sourced so much material from the original film, yet offered fans something they effectively hadn't seen for 15 years, something brand new from the Blade Runner universe. So you may at this point be wondering why you'd never heard of it. Well, despite being highly praised by both fans and critics, Blade Runner, perhaps rather aptly compared to the '82 film, wasn't a huge financial success. It was by no means a flop as it sold over 1 million units, which in PC gaming 1997 terms was exceptionally good, but this also came with high development costs, and quite honestly, the marketing was also cut back to try and ensure that this made a profit. And this doesn't even cover what the licensing agreement for Blade Runner could have potentially entailed. Although this aspect alone undoubtedly gobbled up a fair slice of the profit pie, overall Blade Runner just didn't make enough money. And finally, we also have the timing this game came out. In 1997, point-and-click games were well past their peak of popularity and would effectively go into a period of latency for the next 20 years. First-person shooters were the new order of the day, and games like this, well, there's a number of reasons why many games don't get sequels, but in Blade Runner's case, it's not that it wasn't a good game, because it was an awesome game. It just came a little too late in the point-and-click universe, and ultimately, it just didn't quite make enough money to, from a business sense at least, warrant a sequel. It's a shame, but what are you gonna do? So with the backstory covered, in brief at least, let's now begin to focus on the speedrun itself. Let's take a look at some of the tricks, tips and tools and general knowledge that we've gained that has made this speedrun actually viable in that aforementioned RNG hell. And yes, brace yourself, we are going to be talking about RNG a lot here. Based on the huge array of endings you can get in this game, Blade Runner contains a lot of RNG to achieve the ethos of no two playthroughs feeling the same. While I'm not going to go too deeply down this rabbit hole, there are, put simply, big RNG elements and small RNG elements. The small elements affect certain character spawn times, where they may be located, and what may occur in certain encounters with them. This is unfortunately the stuff we just have to learn to live with, and in terms of speedrunning, adapt to. It's rarely 100% optimal, but such is RNG. As the expression goes, don't worry over the little stuff. The big RNG elements, however, are one of the largest factors which has put many people off from speedrunning this game. Let me, briefly, try to explain why. There are 6 main characters you encounter in Blade Runner, and whether they are human or replicant is randomly selected when you begin the game. This has a huge effect on not only the plot but how quickly you can beat the game, because someone being human may mean you're automatically locked out of a particular ending path. While it is possible via ScumVM to select the seed, until version 2.9 dropped, this, in basic terms, never really worked. There was just too much still going on within the game and how the RNG worked to really get it locked down. Thanks to the efforts of PraetarianWolfie, a ScumVM developer who seems to love this game very much, they found the ability to finally and convincingly lock the seed for Blade Runner. It was finally found and it works with total consistency. There's just one problem though. We can lock the seed, but how do we know which seed to select? Well, I initially started with the very unscientific method of literally just grinding the seeds. I started at number 1 and started to work my way up in the hope that I would finally find the most optimal path. In a move that saved my sanity, however, Darkshoxx, a good friend and fellow speedrunner, did a deep dive into the RNG factors and created a GitHub page which lets you manually select each character, assign them being human or replicant, and then generates a seed number you can enter. The link for this, incidentally, is in the video description, but at this moment I'd like to give a huge shout out to both PraetarianWolfie and Darkshoxx for fixing what was probably the single major factor preventing more people from attacking the speedrun more directly. Kudos to you two. And bear in mind folks that until this was discovered, your only option for speedrunning in this game was just loading it up and hoping that the RNG was favourable. Oh, and what is that seed number? I use 88. There are many more, but 88 works great for me. In a key point for the speedrun though, and particularly submissions, if you do decide to use a locked seed rather than random luck, you will be required to submit this in the seedrunner category with unedited proof of the seed number you used. We tend to recommend showcasing this seed selection after a run is complete just for verification purposes. Seedrunner is a relatively new category. As we said, the ability to lock seeds is quite new. We created this to simply not mess up the original any% group, which was, until the discovery of guaranteed major RNG selection, the horrendous luck grind that people, including myself, used to go for. So if you're going to play a lock seed, submit in Seedrunner. So, we can manually pick a seed. How do we actually do this though? Well, load up ScumVM and go into the global options. From here, access the miscellaneous menu, put as MISC, where you can physically enter a seed number. And just as a clue right now, as I said earlier, 88 works very well for me and is the seed showcased in the upcoming run. Don't start yet though, as there is another quality of life upgrade you can do. Blade Runner, as per the vast majority of point and click titles via their respective rules, doesn't allow for auto clickers, which is mildly annoying as Ray McCoy's speed, that's the main protagonist in the game by the way, is dictated by the number of left clicks you do, with a max cap obviously. With this in mind, I recommend that you go into the game options and tick Disable McCoy's Quick Stamina Drain. What does this mean? Well, as you play the game normally, if you stop left clicking on your destination, Ray McCoy over time will slow down. With this enabled, however, he maintains peak speed without you having to constantly left click spam. It's a quality of life upgrade. It doesn't make the game any faster, it just saves you from a little bit of carpal tunnel. Ugh. And I suppose at this point we need to get into the rather convoluted subject of which version you should run. Ugh. For many years, Blade Runner was effectively a lost game, only accessible via the original media. Thanks to the efforts of some coders though, reverse engineering eventually allowed Blade Runner to land on both Good Old Games and Steam. And in this regard, I'm just going to say it now, get the Good Old Games version. Why? Well, there are 3 versions of Blade Runner, 3 right? The original version, the restored content version, and the so-called enhanced version. And although I know you can't see me, I'm using air quotes on enhanced because quite honestly, it's one of the worst, laziest and terrible remasters ever created. I mean, why upscale when you can just make everything blurry like a 70s porno film camera lens? Just smear Vaseline over everything, it'll look fine, call it remastered, job done. Put simply, nobody runs the enhanced version. You can't lock the RNG anyway, pretty much the entire community hates it, we pretend it doesn't exist, play the original version, thank me later. Oh, and incidentally on Good Old Games, the original version is bundled in for free with the enhanced edition. Good Old Games did this at the user's request since the enhanced version originally saw the original version of the game removed from the store. We, the community, were not happy about this, but Good Old Games came through for us in the end, and yes, you can play the original version. Buy the enhanced version, get the original version for free, play the original version. Finally, as we are, I promise, getting very close to starting to cover this speedrun, I strongly recommend, if you intend to speedrun the game, to initially start by playing the game windowed and locking the mouse within it. Ctrl and M locks the mouse within the window, and as you better learn the game and begin your mouse positioning optimization, you can unlock it at the right number of points to get Ray McCoy moving in the right direction faster. So phew, I think that's everything covered. Maybe? Oh, wait, no. I didn't mention the restored content version. I said there were 3 versions, didn't I? Bloody hell, well, I suppose I better quickly cover that one too. There is a restored version of Blade Runner that adds a number of relatively minor aspects of content that was cut from the final release. It doesn't really offer anything new, but it is interesting for the returning casual to check out. Speedrunning though, well, the restored content offers the speedrunner one pretty huge benefit in that you can completely skip an entire clue chain from the second act of the game, and I'll explain this now for those of you familiar with it. You need no evidence whatsoever to encounter Ezo and progress his plot. No shell casing, no chat with Bullet Bob, no earring. All you need is the fast food carton from the Tyrell building to unlock Danamoid Row as a location. That's it, straight to Ezo, he flashes his camera at you, on with the game. Now this sounds like a huge time save, right? Well actually no, it's not. It's certainly fun, and again, credit to PraetarianWolfie for discovering this restored content skip, but having tested this extensively, it just doesn't seem to be faster. Why? Well, while this one instance might be, there are 2 cutscenes later in the game which you can't skip in the restored content version. Overall, and although I stand to be proven wrong, I think the original version, with the aforementioned setups, is the fastest way to speedrun Blade Runner. Right, and with that said, finally I think we're ready to start looking at the speedrun. We've covered all of the backstory, we've covered everything you need to know in setting up for this speedrun. Let us take a look at the Blade Runner World Record speedrun as we go behind the splits. Having skipped the intro, which I thoroughly recommend watching for the newcomer by the way, time for Blade Runner begins when we select the game's difficulty, but more on this shortly. Before starting, I just want to add a quick reminder again, just in case you weren't paying attention earlier. If you're going for the C runner, i.e. lock major RNG, you will need at least ScumVM version 2.9. I mention this as it's very likely the GOG version will come bundled with a significantly older release, likely 2.0, which once again will not allow for correct seed selection, so make sure you have at least ScumVM version 2.9. On the game's main menu, make sure you have custom selected for the conversation choices, which means you can speed up dialogue by only manually selecting the choices you need to progress the plot, and additionally that you have the designer cut enabled. Designer cut actually reduces the game's dialogue trees and is overall around 20 to 30 seconds faster, and we are speedrunning here, so make sure you have both of those options selected. I should quickly explain how difficulty works in Blade Runner. Bit of a weird concept for a point and click, so keeping it brief, you want to choose easy for a number of reasons. Infinite ammo, essentially infinite money, albeit money is never really a huge factor in this game. Very low gun recoil, enemies have lower health, you're basically a bullet sponge, lower burden of evidence proof to progress the plot, and lower puzzle difficulty. Harder difficulties just make the game, well, harder. And by proxy slower, so short version, you want easy, but time begins the moment you select that easy difficulty. Let's go. So having skipped the initial cutscene, we arrive at Runsiter's Animals, and we already have one of the major tricks of this speedrun, skipping dialogue and cutscenes. The enter key does this quite nicely, but I think space might work as well. And here we showcase what I like to refer to as minimum information cop. You are basically looking for the bare minimum burden of evidence required to progress the plot. So in Runsiter's we pick up the shell casing, we talk to Runsiter, we look at the camera, he goes to get us the camera. And we do have to stand here, by the way, you get the camera footage slightly faster, but if you stand too close, Runsiter will take a route around the tiger cage, which is a lot slower. So having obtained the footage, we go to the police station to analyse it. We are only looking for 2 key pieces of evidence from that video disc: Lucy's face and a sushi menu on a desk at the rear of Runsiter's building. That's it. Remember what I said about minimum information cop? This is all you need to carry on with the plot. And in regard to Lucy's face, getting the shot is actually a little bit of a pixel hump, but if you use this rectangular box, it is successful more often than not. And you may have already noticed, we already have mouse position optimization going on here. That is a major factor in this run and will shave I think a whole minute off the run if you're good at it. But with us grabbing an eyeful of that aforementioned sushi menu, we have everything we need to progress the plot. On to Howie Lee's. Quick question, we do have a video analyzer at home, why don't we go there? The police station just has less screen transitions, it's faster. We get to Howie Lee's, and all we do here is just talk to Zubin, the rather large chef at the back. We just spam dialogue at him until he says, "Got to make some more Outback." Wait a second before running to the kitchen though, as he can get in your way. Once in the kitchen though, again, talk to him about Lucy and then dodge the pot. You have to physically click to the right to make that pot jump, and it does save time, so make sure you do it. One slight warning as we are in this chase sequence. The stairs coming up, if you spam left click too hard, you can climb them twice. It's a fun glitch when it happens. But we get upstairs, we walk to the end, Zubin drops down. We retire Zubin, and that is pretty much Act 1 completed. We go outside, we have a conversation with Gaff that's unfortunately a little long, but we return home. And yes, I know it's early in the run, but this walk animation for Gaff that you just have to let play out, it just feels like an absolute eternity. And once again, pay attention to mouse positioning optimization. This is a long run, and the most optimal of speedruns will be looking for times of under 20 minutes. By getting the mouse in the right place at the right time, you can shave massive amounts of time off your pace. And as a quick side note, aren't those lighting effects in this game just absolutely gorgeous? So as we go back to our apartment, we ignore the dog, because dog just takes time. We go into our bedroom and we're forced to walk onto the balcony, where he will typically have something of a self-reflective monologue. We just go straight back indoors and head straight to bed to begin Act 2. Oh, and the dog sprite actually has collision. It can get in your way sometimes, and that can be a small RNG factor that costs you time. Thanks, Maggie. So, having received a call, we are informed that there has been a murder at the Tyrell offices. We would know this if we watched the cutscene, but watching cutscene takes time. So we head back up to the roof, we get in our car, and we head off to the Tyrell building. And just because I think credit is due, the cutscenes in this game are absolutely awesome. So yeah, that casual playthrough recommendation comes back here again. Be sure to check them out if it's your first time playing. I say again, the cutscenes in this are gorgeous, and for 1997, absolutely incredible. But here we are, we have arrived at Tyrell. We talk to the security guard who gives us a video disc we're never going to check out, by the way, and we enter the outside of where the murder took place. We pick up an earring and we immediately leave. And yes, the hitbox for that earring is horrendous, but Minimum Information Cop has done his job, it's time to move on. We have a location, we can head to Anemoid Row. Arriving in Anemoid Row, we want to talk to the lady at the back who has the Dragonfly kiosk, Dragonfly earring. We ask her about the earring, and at this point you want to position the mouse slightly to the left so you can get a faster movement transition to the next screen. Mouse optimization once again. When talking to Bullet Bob, upgrade your gun first and then ask him about the shell casing. Doing the dialogue in this order is actually a lot faster and well worth it. The upgraded ammo is actually somewhat optional, but it does make killing bosses later in the game a lot faster. And here we have Ezo, and boy do I hate Ezo. In fact, I hate him so much I'm going to take a second to explain why. Ezo comes out of this shop. The time in which it takes Ezo to emerge from this shop is a small RNG factor that you can do literally nothing about. He may appear the moment you come into this scene, he may take anything up to 45 seconds. It's completely random, it's horribly hateful, and one of the reasons why the restored content version sometimes isn't faster. Yes, you can progress Ezo's plot without the shell casing and without discussing with Bullet Bob or the earring, but the amount of time it takes for him to appear here can still cost you 45 seconds. Don't get me wrong, if you head straight to this room, there's a very slim chance he will immediately emerge from his store, but that is a very, very, very low probability. Just another reason why, at least in my view, the restored content version just isn't faster. But here we have another chase sequence, and yes, there is somewhat of an RNG factor in shooting the lock off that gate. Sometimes you get it first time, sometimes you have to put a whole clip of bullets in it. It's crazy, but here we are pursuing Ezo, and we are looking to essentially move on with Act 2 here. In this encounter with Ezo, you have a very small frame of opportunity to try and move Ray McCoy as far left as you can on the screen. Attempt to do this, it requires a lot of mashing with the left click, but it can get you back to this screen 2 to 3 seconds faster than just letting the cutscene play out as normal. But here we are, Minimum Information Cop is on his way again, and we are off to DNA Row. In a section that probably has the most trickiest mouse optimization, the first thing you want to do is head left, go upstairs into Luther and Lance's room and check the message on the answering machine. Following this, we go downstairs into Dermo Design, where the owner just happens to be chained up to a bomb. Make sure that you shoot the lock and not the bomb. You shoot the bomb, it explodes, game over. And when you exit the building as well, make sure to run. Spam click left. If you do not run fast enough, you will die. Oh, and if you're wondering if just shooting the owner is faster, no, it is not. And here we go to Hannibal Chew, a character reprising his role from the film. We exhaust the mandatory dialogue until we can specifically ask him about JF Sebastian. He tells us he lives in the apartment block that's just conveniently behind his office, and we go in. And for those of you who know the film, you are going to know this location very, very well. And having seen a shadowy figure run away from us, we're in another chase sequence, and we are very quickly here coming up to the end of Act 2. And yes, once again, hitboxes in this game can be a little awkward, work with it. Here at the end of Act 2 we have a mandatory cutscene. We can't skip the action, but we can skip the dialogue, so be sure to be hitting that spacebar just to get through the lines as quickly as possible as we head into Act 3. Skipping yet another cutscene, we find ourselves tied to a chair. We have to untie ourselves from this very, very dark and shady radiator at the back of the room, and yes, the number of the clicks determine how fast Ray McCoy hops, so spam that click. Oh, and despite lots of evidence here, Minimum Information Cop doesn't need any of it. And just because I think it's worth mentioning, in this scene you can immediately leave the area without having to interact with Leon or the hotel manager. In the restored content version, however, this cutscene has to completely play out. Hence another reason why I think that despite the skip in restored content, this version is still faster. Leaving the Yukon, we collect a food wrapper from the car. Crazy the amount of clues in this game that revolve around food. We leave the area, but that food wrapper we picked up, that gives us minimum information required to head to the arcade. And it's from this point in Act 3 that despite locking the RNG in regard to who is human and replicant, the RNG factors are really one of the biggest nightmares of this speedrun. Let me explain why. In Act 3 we have 3 tasks to complete, which will vary depending on who is human and who is replicant. In the most optimal path, that we're currently aware of at least, we choose the seed to set the following. Lucy is human, Dectora is human, Gordo is a replicant. With these choices locked via the seed selection, we know exactly what we have to do to progress the plot. Simple, right? Well, actually, no. No, it's not. Remember those small RNG factors and how I said they can affect where a character might be? Well, here we have what can potentially be a huge time loss, and speaking from personal experience, the main record pace killer. Namely, whether Lucy here is in the arcade or not. Yes, that is RNG. In basic terms, Lucy will, sooner or later, be available to talk to in the arcade here. The problem is that she may not be there when you arrive. That means you have to either cycle the screen or leave to do something completely different, come back and hope that she has returned. Her being in the arcade at this particular point is total luck. From here you have 2 options. You can either cycle the screen a couple times and hope that she will appear, which doesn't happen often, or you can go to progress another area of the plot. Oh, and then be forced to come back here later. Either way you look at it, if Lucy is not here at this particular moment when you first come to the arcade, it is a total time loss. So if you want one of the most optimal times, just pray that Lucy is here. Oh, and regardless of what dialogue you pick, she will run away. Choose Voiconf, it's the fastest. With Lucy dealt with though, and yes, that is the last time we see her, we go to Nightclub Row. We have a few things to do here, but this is why we ideally want to get Lucy out of the way first. We no longer need to return to the arcade. Lucy, once again, is done. As we enter early queues, you're going to want to take the long route to the stage to get the bouncer's attention. Go the long way, talk to the stripper, this will encourage the bouncer to take a closer look, and from here we can enter the booth and the secret area of the club. Now this part is what I think, for the casual player, is probably the worst puzzle, for want of a better word, of the game. We go over and talk to early queue, and from this point on it appears that we have absolutely nothing to do. We're standing around, nothing has progressed. What are we supposed to do? Well, we're just supposed to wait here for about 20 to 30 seconds. Early queue will eventually exit to the left where we can finally gain access to the next area. And this is why I think this is a very obtuse puzzle. There is just nothing telling you that all you have to do is wait. Positioning Ray to the left of the screen though, we can gain fast access here, and all we have to do is wait for this dragonfly dance to play out. You'll want to position yourself in the bottom left area of the stage to once again just gain quicker access to the next area. But yeah, this is one moment in the game where you can at least get up, stretch your arms, grab a drink. It's about 20 to 30 seconds again. You can't skip it, so you might as well just learn to love it. After what feels like an eternity, we can finally go backstage and talk to Dectora. We only need to do 2 dialogue options with her. We need to ask her about a belt, something to do with the dragonfly, and then we have to warn her that Crystal, a fellow Blade Runner, might be interested in her. She runs off, Dectora is done, just Gordo remaining. And once again, if you're really looking to nail down a super competitive time, mouse positioning optimization is a really key factor, as it is in a lot of point and click adventure games. Having your mouse in the right place at the right time can shave literal minutes off your time. It's very tricky to learn, but once you've got it in hand, it is a massive advantage. From here we cross the street and talk to Gordo, who I sometimes affectionately refer to as Mr. Comedy. And like Lucy, he may not be at this bar, and if he's not, you need to cycle the RNG. In one very inconsistent skip though, the moment you've finished dialogue, leave the room immediately and re-enter. Sometimes you can skip his animation where he walks up onto the stage, and leave and re-enter the room as he begins each joke. It makes his dialogue go a lot faster, and this I promise you can save about 30 seconds across just this one interaction event. Having finished with this scene though, a policeman enters, clubs us on the head, we skip a cutscene, and oh no, like the film, we are now questioning whether we are a replicant. Again, skipping cutscenes does skip some of the plot, but we immediately head back to the club where Gordo makes a break for it. Now as Gordo runs out of the club, we will have a shootout sequence in the street. Please make absolutely certain that you get that cursor fully on Gordo. If you accidentally shoot Dectora instead of Gordo, you go to jail, game over. And yes, I have lost runs to misclicks there. With that though, Act 3 is complete, and we enter what I think, casually speaking as the game as a whole, is a weaker part of the game, Act 4. We are under suspicion of being a replicant, we have to clear our name. So we start by returning to the room we skipped in the cutscene. Make sure you look at this chair first. Looking at it is required to progress the plot. But from here we have what is somewhat mandatory in a game of this era, a sewer section. First thing we do is return home. Sounds a good idea, right? We've had a long hard day, let's go home. Oh, and as a side note, in these sewer sections from this point on, you can encounter police who will try and shoot and kill you, and very rarely also sewer mutants, and I promise you, the sewer mutants are very creepy. You can shoot and kill them if you wish, the police are annoying, I recommend just skipping them. But we go back home, we go into our apartment, and what's this? There is somebody in our apartment. We are not who we say we are? Crazy. So, as mentioned earlier, Act 4 is simply a case of us obtaining evidence to try and clear our name and restore our position within the police force. And yes, also from this point on, the sewers are our main mode of transport. Overall, and in case I hadn't made it abundantly obvious at this point, I'm not particularly a fan of Act 4, I think it's just a little slow, but anyway, let us progress the plot. Our boss, who we haven't actually seen, in this playthrough at least, has been selling weapons on the side. He is attempting to frame us for this, so we have to clear our name by, essentially, blackmailing him with the evidence. Oh, and in a slight leap of moon logic, I don't really know what motivates Ray McCoy to go to these next few areas, but this is what we need to do to progress the game. And here we have one of the worst things in the game, the Rat of Death. Technically representing a puzzle, the Rat of Death is so obtuse that it almost borders on the ridiculous. I have in fact watched many people playing this casually and getting stuck here for hours. So, what is the Rat of Death? Well, we need to cross this bridge, and a rat is blocking our path. If we attempt to just walk over, the rat will kill us. So, what's the solution? Well, how about walking onto the plank and shooting the rat? Sounds logical considering the rat doesn't spawn until you're on the plank. Well, no. In what I can only presume is quantum physics, the gun explosion causes the plank to snap. You'll fall into the toxic goop. Game over. So, bait the rat. Get off the plank, shoot the rat, cross the bridge, right? Nope. The combined weight of you and the rat is quite literally the straw that breaks the plank's back. You fall in the toxic goop, game over. So, what is the solution? Well, you have two choices. Walk onto the plank, kill the rat, exit the scene, the rat despawns, you cross the bridge. Huzzah! The alternative is killing the rat within the first couple of frames possible. This positions the rat far enough on the right to not technically be on the plank, meaning the plank can support your weight. How much do I trust the consistency of this latter solution? Well, the fact that in this speedrun I didn't attempt it, despite getting a very early kill on the rat, should tell you all you need to know. This is, without a doubt, the worst puzzle in Blade Runner, and yes, worse than just waiting around for early queue. Here we meet Luther and Lance. Here we kill Luther and Lance. Shown in a cutscene we didn't watch, we don't need to talk to them at all, we just need to kill them so we can access their files. What's in the files? Proof that our boss has been selling weapons on the side. So, going up the stairs we enter Luther and Lance's room, very convenient location by the way, and we give our boss a call to enter into a little bit of blackmail. Our boss agrees to clear our name and wants to meet us in the sewer for the exchange. Once again, a very convenient location since it's only 3 screens away. And for a rather large man, him getting there before us is rather impressive. So here we enter into a somewhat long dialogue scene where our boss tries to explain his actions, saying that he really believed deep down that we were a replicant, but now not really. It's all a bit convoluted, but there is actually a speedrunning tech to make this conversation go a little faster. Under normal circumstances, you're supposed to let this conversation play out. You hear each other's side, etc, etc. 2 bad guys waiting in the wings, kill your boss, he falls into the goop, you progress the plot. Except we can do this faster. How, you might ask? Well, in a skip I like to call Living the Dream, we just shoot our boss, he falls into the goop, the plot progresses. Be warned though that not dissimilar to the Gordo hostage situation earlier in the game, you have to hit your shot because if you miss, he will shoot you, game over. And once again, yes, I've lost runs to that. But despite shooting our boss, our name is now officially clear, we can return back to our apartment. Just be warned though, those police officers and mutants I warned you about earlier, they can still spawn and shoot at you here, so be careful of that. My opinion again still remains the same, just avoid them. Run past them, get back to your apartment as soon as you can. Oh, and no, we do have one more journey through the sewers left to go. Yes, they sure love their sewers in these acts. And just to prove that there are no hard feelings for us killing our boss, we have, once again, a somewhat long and tedious conversation with Gaff here before we can get into our apartment. But as soon as we do get in there, that marks the end of Act 4. We're officially into the 5th and final act. Oh yeah, and by the way, in a blink and you'll miss it moment, they killed our dog. Maggie, no! And by they, I mean an actual fellow Blade Runner, because it's still actually somewhat vague as to if we are a replicant or if we're just a replicant sympathiser. The plot's a bit weird in this run. Get used to it. The bottom line is that Minimum Information Cop pretty much just kills everyone and still comes out of it kind of the good guy. Yeah, speedruns can be weird. So dodging some more killer rats, we have to do a little bit of pixel hunting to get to this next area. Do not just run through though, there is a bomb, we have to disarm it. If you just run through, you die. And speaking of that fellow Blade Runner that killed our dog, here she is. Say hi Crystal, say bye Crystal. And just to confirm, the fight with Crystal and the next one with Sadiq, say hi Sadiq, very shortly bye Sadiq, is the reason that I upgrade my ammo. Particularly with Sadiq, it makes the fight go a lot faster. Put simply, with better bullets, he dies faster. Makes sense. And here we enter the end of the game, we enter this rocket. We do have the option to kill Clovis. It's not much of a time loss if you do, but if you just exit the ship, he dies of replicant natural causes. You have a quick chat with Gaff, and as soon as you get the origami figure, that's time. Game over. That's Blade Runner beat in 18 minutes 31 seconds. Blade Runner is by no means a perfect game. Like a lot of other point and click titles, while there are moments of absolute genius, they do tend to get balanced out a little by those small moments of frustration. Just to put this into context, I personally consider Broken Sword to be the greatest point and click title of all time, but even that has the issue of the somewhat infamous and now meme-worthy goat puzzle. For fans of the original 1982 film though, Blade Runner 1997 is a wonderful piece of fan service. It feels entirely in keeping with the original world and like slipping on a very comfortable, if slightly dystopian shoe. And in a fun fact, did you know that the soundtrack used in this game, what you've heard as background music for the entirety of this video, wasn't actually the original from Vangelis? It was in fact a somewhat original score based on the Blade Runner soundtrack. Westwood Studios legend Frank Klepacki, I hope I'm getting that right, known very much for his work on Command & Conquer, did an absolutely incredible job here. So just to be clear, this is not the original Blade Runner soundtrack, but more of a dedication to it. Can you tell the difference? Be honest, did you really notice? In wrapping up this video though, should you speedrun this game? Well, by and large, it will get a very strong recommendation from me, and particularly for somebody who may be new to the hobby. Blade Runner's speedrun isn't overly difficult. Oh sure, the optimisation, as per any point and click title, is very difficult to achieve, and especially so at the highest level. But with a little effort, I'd be surprised if most people couldn't get a time of under 20 minutes within their first couple weeks of practice. And especially so if they go for the Speedrunner category, which, despite me being the only one in it right now, will undoubtedly become the run of choice for upcoming players. Yes, even despite the fact that we can lock the major RNG for the key characters, the small RNG elements, such as Lucy being in the arcade on your first attempt, can be very annoying. If you're new to the speedrun though, ignore this bad luck. Do not consider this a reset point until you know the route, and particularly the minor RNG foibles of Act 3, as best as you can at least. And this gets onto a point I regularly mention with any speedrun. I think the best times will only be achievable by those who invest some time in the casual playthrough. Just as an example of this, at my live speedrun of Blade Runner at UKSG, this run didn't go entirely according to plan. A small but very unusual RNG aspect completely threw me off, and for a brief moment I was in a full-blown confused panic mode as to what had gone wrong and how I could fix it. Thanks to me knowing the game so well though, I was, after a little investigation, and again some mild panic, able to figure out what I'd missed, and I got the run back on track. For the most competitive runs, this is the kind of knowledge I think you need. Yes, the run might not entail the vast majority of the casual aspects, but the more you know helps you to understand why we run the route we do, understand why things may not necessarily be going entirely according to plan, and perhaps most interestingly of all, it might give you an insight into skips, strategies, tech, or routes we've not yet considered. So in closing, whether you are old or new to the Blade Runner video game, and particularly speedrunning, consider this an excellent recommendation as a fantastic and not too challenging game to pick up. I've copied all of the key links in the description, so along with this video you should have all the tools you need to get started. Well, minus an actual copy of the game. Good Old Games has you covered there though. I love this game, and by and large, even despite the RNG, I love the speedrun too. and I hope this look behind the splits has, if nothing else, piqued your interest. And even if your best times are lost, like Tears in Rain, for speedrunning this game, it's never time to die. This has been Behind the Splits. Thanks for watching.